Alright guys, so today I'm doing a list that's a little bit different. I don't usually do music lists, it's not really my thing, but I do like a lot of different style music. Now, I've mostly focused on doing these rankings. I've only done a couple others and it was mostly rap, but I do like other genres. But for today I decided why not do NF, which is a rapper who has put out music pretty well known. He's not like mainstream in terms of like on the radio all the time, though he does have some radio hits, but he's mostly known as kind of the emotional theatrical rapper. And that is, something that I like as someone who likes that kind of heavy themed in movies and trailers and stuff like that. So he caught my interest a long time ago when Mansion came out. Here we have Mansion to Hope, which are five main albums, and then Clouds, which is a mixtape. That's this little guy right here. And I'm just going to rank them where I think they deserve to be in terms of overall songs. And I am going to kind of just talk about the whole albums or the whole album at each one, and then also kind of pick some of my favorite songs from each album, some of the songs that didn't really gel with me, and then some or one or two that I think are underrated on the album that no one really talks about. And since music discussions get a little bit heated in debate, remember that music is extremely subjective, more so than I think even, any other media, because music matters to people how it connects to them the most. And yes, you could say that about video games or comics or books or TV shows or movies, but albums are usually pure thoughts of someone saying how they feel, and so sometimes you really relate to and other times you don't, and that's just simply how it is. So I want everybody to be respectful in that sense. If someone says that a song matters to them, that means it matters to them on the comments, so please be respectful. I don't mind people disagreeing or saying why they like something, why they didn't. Just don't be basically an asshole. So we're going to start off with Mansion. I think this is definitely the first album where he's trying to find his place in this rap world. But something that's interesting about this album, more so than some of his other albums, is he really has a mixture of sounds on this album. I feel like this is with him trying to find his place, and he raps on it, don't get me wrong, but he also sings on this one quite a bit. And as a whole, this album has 12 songs, which personally, my favorite album length is about 12, sometimes even 10, but 12 to 14, maybe 15 songs. Then we start reaching out to a little high for me. And so this album's nice range for me. But the thing with this album, and I'm going to be honest, is that I like the rap portions of this album. I do not like much of the singing on this album. So for me, Mansion starts off really good and kind of ends in a whimper in a way, something I don't really revisit much. I didn't even like it that much when I first heard it, and I definitely think the first half of this album is much stronger than the second half of this album. Now, some highlights of this album are definitely Mansion. It's a great song. It's a good song to introduce you to who NF is. It's very emotional. He is sounding like he's upset on this song and just pure anger, and it sounds real. It doesn't sound like he's just saying it to kind of fall into a category that gets teenagers or young adults or even adults to relate to feeling depressed or angry or upset. And that's kind of, I think, what people are drawn to. So Mansion is a great song to introduce you to this rapper. But another song that I think is great is Intro. If you want to know the rapidy rap side of NF, that's the kind of song I would show something. He has a lot of anger on it, but he's also displaying his skills as a rapper. And one thing that I think sets him apart from someone like, and I hate to say this, but a newer Eminem or, Tech Nine, is that sometimes when they rapidy rap fast, you really can't understand what the fuck they're saying. Whereas I feel like NF, even when he raps fast, you very much understand what he's saying. And he might not rap as fast as those artists, but you definitely can understand him more than those artists first time around. At least from my experience of listening to all three of those artists through my entire life. And I'm very much listening to them since I was in high school, and NF only recently. And I think another one song that I would show people on this album that I think does showcase him is either Wake Up or Notepad. Wake Up has a little too much on the chorus and production, but I feel like Notepad is also a great introduction to who NF is and what kind of sets him apart from other rappers in terms of just showing who he is and how he came to be what he is right now. So I think those songs are good. A song that I think is underrated on this album that I don't really feel a lot of people talk about, and I still think is one of his better singing songs, is Wait. I think just the catchy chorus, the sound effects in this song, and yes, it's a little plain in terms of talking much about. A lot of it's just wait, but for some reason it really works for me, and as more of a slow, nice melodic song, I enjoy this song quite a bit, and no one really talks about it. Talking about it, there are some songs that to me really didn't work. I think Motivated's chorus is one of the worst, if not his worst song in terms of chorus, but then you have, Turn the Music Up, which is also an awful chorus. The lyrics on these songs aren't too bad in the verses, but the choruses are downright terrible, let's be honest. And I also think, like I said, the singing doesn't really work for me all the time, so I think the last three songs kind of failed to capture my attention. Paralyzed is a big one that people seem to like. I personally never liked it. And then Can You Hold Me, I just think is kind of a bore, if I'm being 100% honest. I do think that this album is a little bit on the weaker side overall. Going back to and listening now, pretty much out of the 12 tracks, I would really only re-listen to maybe 4 of these songs. And then the others I might listen here or there, like Face It, Wake Up, things like that. But overall, I think this is only a couple of decent songs, in my honest opinion. I don't think it's a great album. If I were to judge just the ones I like Intro and Mansion, I think those two are excellent songs, but an otherwise not excellent album, if that makes sense. So for me, this is one of the weaker albums overall. And I know this might come as a surprise. Some people love this album, but I just think it's a couple of decent songs. But for me, there's a lot of songs I skip or songs that I just don't think are good. All right, and only a year later, he decided to come out with Therapy Session. Now, Therapy Session is definitely a more deeper cut into who he is, and I think that's kind of what made this album a little bit better for me. Now again, I feel like this album does have a lot of rap songs, but does have some singing songs, and again, I don't think the singing part of this album really got my attention. I do think it's better, and overall I think he's perfecting his singing part of these songs a little bit better, but for me, this album, I say the biggest problem I have with this album is I don't think any of the songs on here are as good to me as Mansion or Intro. Now, I do think Intro 2 is really good and underrated. That's my underrated song on this. I feel like nobody really talks about Intro 3 of all the intros. Intro 2. Sorry, we'll get to Intro 3. But I like Intro 2. As far as the good songs, I mean, some of the big ones are How Can You Leave Us, which is a very emotional song and one song I cannot listen to too often. Therapy Session is definitely a big one. And of course, Real. Those are kind of the big songs. Now, I do think Real is awesome. I do like it. But it doesn't have that replayability that some of his other hype songs do have later on. But I do enjoy it, and it's kind of fun to listen back now and where he is. I think this album does do better on the hype songs on the chorus wise. I think Grinding is a little bit better than any of the motivated choruses. It's still a little corny, but I think he's kind of finding his place. And then I do think Statement is pretty good as well. However, there's some of these other songs on here that I didn't like. I don't like Oh Lord, I Can Feel It, Breathe. Those songs didn't do much for me. And at 14 songs, it is a little bit longer than I think it should be. Cutting 2 of those songs probably would have made this album a little bit better for me. I do think another song that doesn't get talked about that I really like is Lost in the Moments. This is a song that I think is actually really well done. I think the chorus is good. I think the lyrics are good. But yeah, overall, this is a pretty good album. I think it's uneven. I would listen to this one straight through more than I would Mansion because I think that even the weaker songs are decent. I just don't think there's any songs on here that are as good as, say, Mansion or Intro 1 for me. But saying that, it is a good album, but an uneven album. So I'm going to put that right there. That's where I feel like it belongs. All right, and so we come to Perception. Now, Perception is the album that pretty much catapulted him into fame, and mostly thanks to the song Let You Down, which I have a feeling you probably heard this song on the radio. This was the one song that was on the radio. Another song that I heard in FYE and Hot Topic and things like that, mostly FYE, not Hot Topic, was Lie, which is another big song that came from this album. So this album to me, Perception, is when Nate NF really started to form his music ability. So we know he has emotion. We know he has things to say that people can relate to. But one thing I felt like he was still working on how to formulate his music to both give it a mainstream appeal and also still keep his fan base where they wanted. And he kind of fused that, and this is the one that really pushed it. Right out the gate, Intro 3 is kind of the end of this saga, the trilogy here, the Mansion, Therapy Session, and Perception. But the biggest bonus to this album for me is definitely that I feel like this is the one that I can actually listen all the way through and pretty much enjoy every song on this album. I also think it has some of his strongest songs overall. And if we're going to talk about strongest songs, this album contains two of my favorite songs of him from all time. I think Remember This is a great showcase of him telling the truth and people having to listen to what he's saying, because you can definitely relate to these lyrics in a lot of way. Even if you think that's kind of stating some of them as the obvious, sure, but he's stating them. And sometimes you need to hear it to be like, yeah, that's the truth. And another song I really, really enjoy in this is Dreams. I think this, to me, is the perfect combination of singing into rapping at the end that just captures everything. It's one of my favorite choruses. It's one of those great songs that at night when you're driving home from work or whatever, and you just put it on and you're kind of vibing with it. This is easily one of my favorite songs. One of my most replayable songs. This was definitely, I think when I looked on Spotify, it was my most replayed song on this album. So there's a reason why I like this song so much. But I think there's a lot of great songs on here. I think the underappreciated song on here is definitely Green Lights. Now, it was a single, but I feel like no one ever talks about it. And to me, I really enjoy this song as a hype song. I think it formulated a pretty good chorus too, which was why it surprised me that I didn't catch on. But, there's a couple of great songs on here. If You Want Love is really, really resonates with you in terms of kind of finding yourself and wanting to be loved and cared for and figuring out why you don't feel that way. If I were to say some of the weaker songs on here, I'd say definitely 100. It's a little corny. And 10 Feet Down. I absolutely dislike this song for the chorus and the beat, but mainly the chorus. I just do not like it at all. It irritates my ears. And intro 3 I felt was a lot weaker than intro 1 and 2 for me. I think it's a cool ending to the saga, but I don't ever really listen to the song outside of the first couple of times I listen to it, because it has absolutely like no replay value for me. Songs like this really don't, in my opinion. But yeah, overall, Perception is an amazing album for me. This is one album I will listen from back to front. I think it's the strongest musically in terms of finding his craft, and I think he's finally getting into his groove. And I don't think he's overly depressing on this album. I think he's just mostly saying how he feels at this moment, speaking a little bit of truth, and also musically creating something that's different and diverse, and something that I think is one of his best works, if not his best. So this is going in amazing. All right, in the Search. So if Perception catapulted him to the mainstream, Search kind of made him even bigger. This is the album that really just kind of blew up. And I can see why, having a core, hardcore fan base before this helps, but also this seems to have reached other people out there that were like, whoa, who's this? And I think this is the album that I would say most people probably got into NF as of recently. I think, anyway. I don't know 100%. I was into him way before this, but I feel like this is a great intro album. No pun intended. So what do I think of The Search? Well, Search is a really interesting album. It's 19 songs, one interlude, and it is long. Holy shit. And it's a really hard album for me to judge, because I think that this one has a few too many filler songs. I think that if we cut out 4 songs, this album could have been as good as Perception, in my opinion. I also think this album has some of the best songs he's ever made. And my favorite song that he's ever made actually is on this album, called Change. I think as someone at my life point during then, I was trying to do big changes in my life. This song kind of resonated me to get me back into, just being healthier and working on myself, and really kind of just hit me in such a crazy way. So for that alone, this album is always going to be special to me. Other songs that I think really, really were good is When I Grow Up. Only is an excellent song, and that would probably be my underappreciated song as well. I don't see it brought up much, and Only to me is just one of those songs that, again, kind of like Remember This, really just speaks volumes if you are going to relate to it. And I do relate to a lot of it, especially trying to create stuff and going through all these plans and not working out all the time and being medicated when you don't want to be. Things like that really worked on this song for me. So that's my underappreciated and also one of my favorite songs on here. And then I also like the hype songs on here. I think Options is great, and I also think Returns is great. So the hype songs worked really well on here. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. So, everybody I feel goes through depression in a way, in their own way. And some it gets heavy, some it's for a while, some it's forever. For me, I go through waves of depression just like anybody else, I feel, and trying to find something to spark you again, I guess, in a way. And for me, this album is pretty dour. And of course, this is NF just spilling his feelings, so I don't blame him for that. I just feel like it's a little too much for me. Even in my most depressing moments in my life, I think this is too much of a dour feel. I think the songs that miss for me are I Miss the Days, Hate Myself, Let Me Go. These songs are just, yeah, I just don't like them. And it's not that I think they're badly made. I think the lyrics will actually match it and everything in terms of if you're feeling this way. But these are songs that I have really no motivation to listen to. I'm not going to be bumping this in my car anytime soon. These are just songs that I don't really feel have the message that I'm looking for in a song. I think for some people, they can relate and get through it and through these moments, but not for me. I also think a song like Nate is not great. I'm not a fan of kind of just going over the same shit. We already knew most of this stuff he was talking about in this song. And when you repeat things, it starts getting boring, just like any artist who kind of repeats the same material and story that he's already told. And yeah, I think this album kind of closes on a sour note. I think Thinking and Trauma are not the greatest songs. I don't think they're bad, but I don't think I would ever listen to these songs outside of like listening to the album all the way through. This is a big album. This is 19 fucking songs. And so having that, well, one interlude, so 18 actual songs, even saying 8 of these songs I don't really listen to much, there's still 10 I do. So that's kind of the benefit of having a long album, is you probably have more songs that you like than you won't like. But at the same time, it's an overly long album that I don't plan on replaying all the way through anytime soon, just because of some of the songs I find just kind of boring. So this is a good but uneven for me. I think that it would be ahead of Therapy Session. Not quite up there with great, but I do enjoy it for what it is, but it's just not quite there for me. I think I would skip like 5 to 6 songs when I listen to this album. That's a lot. So I feel like it is an uneven album, but it's a good album, and I think it's stronger than Mansion and Therapy Session overall. All right, and so we get to Clouds, which is the mixtape, and this one is pretty good. With Clouds, I was kind of not expecting really much, and I think that's why I liked it so much. I felt like this was Nate more experimenting with different styles, different cadences, different beats a little bit, and I really enjoyed this. I think all of these songs are listenable. There's only one, and I'll get to it, that I kind of skip most of my times listening to it. I will say I think Clouds is one of the strongest openers, right up there with Search. I do like Search a lot, by the way, from the last album. But Clouds is just, I think, had more energy, and the ending, I feel like the beat of it is just so strong. So overall, I think that's great. I also like Just Like You, Story. I think it's good, though better when you watch the music video. I think Prideful definitely hits. My favorite songs on the album are Layers. I really like that song. I think it just is just kind of that perfect mix of bravado and also just having fun, and also some really cool cadences on that song. And I also like Trust, which I think, having Tech Nine on it really boosted it for me. I love Tech Nine. And I also like Lost, which has Hobson on it, which is really impressive because Hobson, I feel, is a fun rapper, but also not my favorite. I like him for a long time. But he actually outshined Nate for me on this song, which is a real surprise. So it was really cool. So the songs that I don't really love on this, That's a Joke, I feel, is okay. It has the chorus that I don't really like that much. And I also think Drifting is a weird song. I like it, but I also don't love it. It feels very unfinished. It's a weird song. And Paid My Dues, I think that's on this album. If not, it's just a song I'm going to talk about. I don't like this song. I think it's kind of a shitty song in terms of what he's trying to capture. Like, I paid my dues, I deserve respect. Like, dude, we know that. Like, you're selling triple platinum fucking albums. Like, do you need to talk about this? Like, I don't know, stuff like that. Just, it didn't feel like the boasting that I want to hear from Nate. I actually like this. I would put it with great with few skips because there's only a couple of songs that I would actually skip on this album, and just 2. And I think that's pretty good. So this one, in terms of replayability, is probably one of the higher ones for me in terms of just overall enjoyment, and that really surprises me. So yeah, I'm gonna go Clouds with great with a few skips. All right, we get to the final album, or the newest one at this time of recording, and it's Hope. And Hope is, well, I didn't know how I was going to feel about Hope at first because, it's a different Nate and mindset, but I was actually excited when he first revealed that his mindset was going to be, well, more hopeful. Get it? Oh my God, that was so fucking corny. But other things that kind of built up my anticipation was when I saw the track list was only 13 songs. That was really exciting too. Again, my sweet spot is that 10 to 14 songs for albums, and it just kind of cuts out filler for me. And so my main thing then was, is this going to be the album? And well, and I really liked Hope. I thought that was a great first single. It captured everything I like about NF, where we are at in his mindset at this point, touches all these subjects that we're probably going to get talked about on the album. Awesome. Loved it. One of my favorite songs that he's done in a while. Then he put out Motto. Hey, listen, everybody puts out music that they feel will get the hype and generate the views, and, people will like it. This was not one of those songs for me. No, sir. I think it's a very corny song, but not a horrible song. And with that, my thing with this song is that it just touches the stuff that he's already talked about, the industry and how it is and why it is. It also sounds very, very pop, and not that I dislike pop. I like pop music. Not this pop music. It just sounds like other songs I've heard before, and it's not something that I want to ever replay. I replayed it about 5 times just to make sure, and then I was like, yeah, I don't want to listen to this anymore. So those were the 2 singles before the album. So then I got the album. Well, I listened on Spotify, then I bought the album. But listening through it after that, I gotta say, this album's kind of fire. So let me talk about why this album kind of works for me. Is because I think where Nate is in his life is kind of where I'm in my life. I'm feeling pretty good, stable, mostly money-wise. I have a wife who I've been married to a while. He's been married a while, and he just had a kid not too long ago. I had a kid not too long ago. We're trying to keep hopeful, trying to get through the darkness. Not that we're not battling it, but we're trying to get away from it and think positive. And this album is 100% doing that. But 2 really interesting things on this album that I think he has improved drastically is the choruses. Holy crap, this album I think has the best choruses he's done. He has reined himself in to formulate a chorus that's not only catchy, but also still sticks to his roots of, kind of just being a very repeated type of chorus. I also think that some of his overall hype songs on this album are the best he's ever done, and he feels most comfortable while also switching up his flow and cadences and just kind of having more fun creating those songs. Things like Careful, Pandemonium, and Turn My Back. These are songs that he is 100% in his element, having fun, talking about shit, and talking his shit. And that is important, because if you're going to talk that shit, you better prove that you've gotten to that point. And if you listen to all these albums, he has proved that he's gotten to this point. Now, I can see some people kind of being like, well, he's talking about, making a lot of money. Yeah, he's talking about, like, making a lot of money and then spending it on his family. Like, isn't that the point of making a lot of money? To share it with the people you love? And that's what he's talking about. He's not saying I make a lot of money, I'm going out balling and going to the clubs. He's talking about, like, buying nice cars, buying a nice house for his family, getting his grandma out of the fucking basement. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what you want to gloat about. On top of that, I think one thing that's really great about this album, the other big improvement, is his singing. This is the album, finally, that I feel like his singing songs are resonating with me. And I do think he has some songs that have the singing with rap, like Running, Mama, Bullet. These have very much singing choruses, but rap parts in it, and I think these are really, really good in different ways. Mama, a tribute to his mother. Bullet, a tribute to his wife. And Running, a tribute to saying goodbye to his old self, his depression, his anger, all that, and it's wonderful. And the underappreciated songs for this, in my opinion, is Mistake. I love this song. This is the closest to still talking about more of a depression side of things, but he's talking about, I make mistakes, I do things wrong, I may not keep all my promises, but don't call me a mistake. I make mistakes, but I am not a mistake. And I think that's really, really powerful. It resonated with me 100%. And Let 'Em Pray. That's another song where I don't hear much people talking about it, but when that chorus hits in, they have that fucking deep voice going, let 'em pray. I'm like, let 'em pray, bitch. Also, I think the lyrics on this song are similar to Only or Remember This, where he's speaking the truth. He's spitting facts and you want to listen. So yeah, really, this album really surprised me. If I were to say the weaker songs on this album would probably be Motto, definitely not one of my favorite, definitely the weakest song on the entire album for me. Suffice is good, but overly long, and I don't really care about women claiming to have your kid, Nate. I don't, but other people might like. And Gone is a weird song. I like it, but I don't like it. I feel it's overly long, and the slow parts of the song are just boring. But I feel like the lyrics are pretty solid, and I do like part of the chorus. So it's a weird song for me. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But those three songs are probably the weakest on the album for me. Songs that, if I do skip, are the three songs that I pretty much skip. Everything else, though, is just great. I really enjoy this album. It's high up there for me. Might be, I think Perception still will always hold a place in my heart where the part I was in life, but this is also hitting me different than I ever expected. I don't think I expected as I got older that an NF album would resonate with me as much as Perception did where I was at that point in life. But Hope is resonating with me because where I am at this point in life is where kind of Nate is. And I think that's how we're connecting in terms of music. So anyway, my point is I was having a hard time. Like, great with a few skips. Does sound like where it should go because I do have about 2 skips on here. But I also think it's amazing. But I think Perception's still my favorite album that he's done. So anyway, that's my opinion. I don't think any of these albums are horrible. I don't think any are boring. I think some are weaker than others, but I do think that he has improved drastically. I think the biggest controversial pick on here is probably going to be Hope and The Search. I think those would probably flip-flop for people that are watching. Probably have Search on top and Hope may be good but uneven. And that's totally fine. I think these music selections are going to be different for everyone, and I'm actually eager to hear what you guys think if you like NF, where you would put these albums, or if you only listened to 1 or 2 albums, did you like it, or if you just, this music's not for you. That's also a possibility. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do like these type of videos where I do music reviews, I could do more. I do listen to a large amount of music, a lot of post-hardcore, metal, metalcore, rap, rock. I like all that stuff, and I'd love to do more of these if you guys enjoy it. But if not, that's okay. This was mostly just to kind of get my opinion of NF's music out. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. If you do, hit the like button. If you love me, hit the subscribe button. And everybody else, have a wonderful day.